welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a video all about my top favorite single shadows. So to me, these are the best one and done shades, and I think that a lot of these are also quite transformative, so you can use them as eyeshadow toppers if you want to change the finish of another eyeshadow. But overall, I don't much do more than 2 to 3 shades of shadow. I think it gets a little bit complicated after that. And I'm also not the best at doing eyeshadow, so I prefer to keep it simple and just minimal because I'm not that good at doing eyeshadow. I know you don't follow me for my crazy eyeshadow tutorials because that's just not my best skill set, but I still love eyeshadow. I'm just a little bit more minimal with it. So I have 13 here that I'm gonna show you. I will do eye swatches as well as swatches on the back of my hand so you can get a good feel for these shadows and the finishes that they give. The first one I want to mention is probably the most talked about on my channel. It's the Tom Ford Cream and Powder Duo in Golden Peach. I personally wouldn't say that the cream is a peach. I find it to be more of a pearly, rosy color. It does have quite a strong coral red undertone to it, and I really like that because I do think it's ultra flattering on a brown eye. And I love this cream shadow for every day. It's probably my most worn eyeshadow of all time. I like that you can just use your fingers and get a nice light wash of pearl on the eyelids. And then you also do get the powder topper, which creates more of a scattered twinkling effect, and it does definitely bring a little bit more intensity on top of the cream shadow because you just get a little bit more pizzazz on the eye. I don't often use the powder topper, but I do really like it from time to time. But I think that's really nice that you have the option to switch up the look a little bit with the powder on top. But by far, the cream shade is just absolutely beautiful. And I will say, if you do put the powder on top of the cream, it does pull a little bit more peachy. So I'm sure that's actually why it's called Golden Peach, because when you mix the two, you get more of a peachy vibe. But by far, my favorite cream shadow ever, and I do find that this is quite budge proof. I most of the time don't set it with a primer and it lasts all day long. This next one is from Nudestix. This is Bronze Eye Bay, and this is probably my other most worn shadow. It's actually starting to separate because it's, you know, really getting down to the last bits, and this is probably my favorite liquid bronze shadow. I really like using this, again, as a light wash of color all over the eye, but you can also, you know, layer it on top of itself if you do want a little bit more intensity. But I really think this is super easy to work with. You can blend it out with a brush and just get a little bit more of a soft fade on the eye space. And the great thing about these Nudestix ones is that they can double up as eyeshadow primers as well, because these are really budge proof once they've set down. If you do get a lighter shade of these, you can also use them to highlight the face. I have the 24 karat Goddess one, and I oftentimes will use that on my eyes and my face as well. Bronze Eye Bay is a little bit too deep to use on my face, but I'm such a big fan of the Nudestix liquid eyeshadows. The next one is another Nudestix cream pencil. This one's in the shade Rustique, and again, as with a lot of these products, this one has amazing longevity. I really like how this one has almost that like deep burned red undertone to it, and if you pair this with a black eyeliner, you can easily create a really beautiful hazy, smudgy, smoky eye. And I really like using this as close to my lash line as I can on certain days and kind of wearing it as more of an eyeliner as well. But it's a beautiful, deep, rusty bronze shade. And I did want to mention that I could also see cream pencils being slightly easier for beginners to work with because you do have the ability to precisely apply the product exactly where you want it, and then you can blend it out with a brush. Whereas sometimes with liquid shadows, you do need to be a little bit careful. You don't want to over apply a liquid shadow because you can flood your eye with too much product. Whereas with these like cream stick type of pencils, you just always get the perfect amount. This is Ruby Glam from Almay. It's one of their velvet foil cream shadows, which is one of my all-time favorite formulations of eyeshadows. If you haven't checked these out, I highly recommend them because they're so beautiful. So Ruby Glam, I wouldn't say is a ruby. I feel like it's a little bit more of a deep magenta with a really intense pearl to it. And what I love so much about this formula is that it is moussey and it's very easy to work with. I really like using this shade specifically as just an all over light wash of color on the eyes. You can build up the intensity to somewhat of an extent, but I do think it's important to remember that because this is a little bit more moussey, it doesn't set down as much when you're wearing more of the product. So I think it's best worn as like a light wash of color all over the eye. That way you can control the product a little bit more, and it just ensures that it's not gonna migrate around the face or crease as much throughout the day. But nonetheless, I think Ruby Glam is just absolutely beautiful, and it's such a fun but wearable way to put a little bit of color on the eyelids. This was one of my favorite launches of this year. I believe these came out over the summer. It's the L'Oreal Brilliant Eyes Liquid Shadow, and I have quite a few favorite shades from this line, but if I was going to pick just one, it would be Bronze Light, because I do find this shade to not only be really beautiful on its own, but it's also quite a transformative liquid shadow, because you can put this on top of other colors and you'll get this really intense sparkle, but it's not like a tacky craft looking sparkle. It's very beautiful, almost editorial looking on the eyes, and I think this shade is just so pretty because it's quite a multi-dimensional bronze. There's just something that's so unique about this shade, and it's more so like a liquid bronze tint with a ton of different shades of bronze glitter throughout the formula. So really beautiful, really unique, and really beautiful on its own, but also makes an amazing topper to change the finish of whatever you put it on top of. This is another really amazing transformative shade. It's from Marc Jacobs. These are the Sequins eyeshadows, and this one is in Topaz Flash. These have since been repackaged. They're now coming in a component that has a doe foot applicator, and I believe they've switched the formulation to be a little bit more of a liquid shadow, but the powder is gonna have the same shade as the liquid does. And Topaz Flash is such a unique shade because this is more of a neutral brown shade that has the most unique shifts of color in it. When you do see the shifts, it's purple, blue, pink. I even see some yellow, some green. It just has so many different multi-dimensional glitters in there, and they're all different sizes. So again, creates this really unique, scattered, almost twinkling effect on the eye. And built up to full intensity, this is a beautiful full coverage shadow. You can soften this out and just tap it on the eyelid, and you get that really nice topper-esque type of shadow. So very multi-use. You can use it on its own, or you can put it on top of an eyeshadow, and I also think that they look really pretty if you apply them wet with a pencil brush and use it as an eyeliner. Next one is by far the most transformative shadow that I have in my collection, and it's one of my all-time favorites. It's the Laura Mercier Caviar Chrome Veil Lightweight Liquid Eye Color in the shade Opalescent. Now, I really like so many shades from this line, but this one, Opalescent, is by far the most unique because in certain lights it completely disappears, and then when the shift catches the light, you get that really gorgeous opal flash. So extremely unique on its own, just lightly applied over the eyelid, but really great used as an eyeshadow topper, especially over a black. Completely transforms the black into almost like a black with an opal reflector on top, and it's so beautiful. They're so easy to work with. I'd highly recommend any of the shades from this line, but Opalescent is definitely the most fun. This next one is kind of a boring shade, but definitely necessary because I use it almost every single day. It's the Laura Mercier Eye Caviar Stick in Cocoa. So this is a very useful, functional staple in your collection because you can use this as an eyeshadow, you can use it as an eyeshadow primer, or you can use it as an eyeliner. All of the Caviar Art eye sticks are budge proof, and once they set down, they will not migrate around the eye area. The shade Cocoa I really recommend a lot because it's more of a darker neutral brown, so you can really get the product to work with pretty much any eye look that you're doing. And it's also just a really nice functional thing to have in your collection because you'll be using it more than you think that you will. Really nice as an eyeliner, as I was saying, but also looks really beautiful as just a light wash of brown on the eyelids. And it's also a great shade for creating definition on the eye because of that neutral undertone. This next one is the Revlon Colorstay Cream Shadow in the shade 710. I have spoken about this on my channel for years. It's one of my all-time favorite cream shadows, and it does remind me of my favorite cream shadow for so many years that was discontinued, which was Memory by Chanel. I will say I feel like Memory by Chanel was a little bit more warm and woody of an undertone, whereas 710 seems to have a bit more taupe in it, but I still get the same effect that I loved so much from Chanel Memory. The great thing about the Revlon Colorstay shadows is that, again, once they set down, they do not migrate around the eye area. So a great multifunctional product that you can use on its own or as an eyeshadow primer. And a lot of these lighter shades, again, are really great to use on the face. So if you do find one that you think would make a really pretty highlight for the skin, you can also try using it on your eyes as well. And then you'll have a product that you can use for eyes or face. I'm also typically not one to ever go after cool toned eyeshadows. I find them a little bit more difficult to work with. I just struggle with getting the look right on my skin tone. So I'm very finicky with cool tones, and they're just harder for me to work with personally. So this one, there's just something about it that I really love. This is a single shadow from NARS in the shade Stud. Now this is a very cool toned, I'd say it leans quite silver heavy of a taupe, but in this shade, there's almost this soft smokiness to it that allows you to blend out the product. And you will see as I blend it out on my crease, it almost transforms a little bit to where I don't feel like I need to put anything else in the crease aside from a little bit of whatever bronzer I'm wearing on my face. But overall, this just looks so beautiful, so flattering. I like that it's cool toned, but it's not hard to work with. I also think a lot of that leans toward how it has shimmer in the formula, because oftentimes I find the hardest to work with cool tones are the ones that are fully matte or more of a satin. So I just like that this one's a little bit more special. It's really flattering, and I do find that I can actually pull this off with some brown eyeliner as well, whereas typically with cool shades, I find that I have to wear almost always either a black or a gray eyeliner. So I do like how this one is quite versatile. This one is like the best bronze single powder shadow ever. It's one of the little Marc Jacobs gel to powder single shadows, and this one is in the shade OMG. The formula is gel to powder, so the nice thing about that is you don't really need a brush to apply it. You can use your fingertip and apply it to the eyelid, and you will always get full intensity with your fingertips, and again, really easy to blend out. And you will see as I do blend it into the crease, again, it does create a little bit more definition than some other shades that are full shimmers. It's just a really great shade that if you are someone who you just want a reliable bronze to wear every single day, I would recommend this one, especially because it is a powder. I think it's gonna be a little bit more universally loved and perhaps something that everyone feels a little bit more comfortable working with, just because powders tend to be everybody's go-to. This is Glossier's Lid Star in Cub. It is very similar to the Tom Ford Golden Peach, so if you already have one or the other, I don't think you need them both. I just have them both because, you know, for reference. But I went through a phase where I wore Cub pretty much every single day, and I will say if you did have to pick out the difference between Cub and Tom Ford, Cub has a little bit more of a stronger pewter undertone to it. So in certain lights, Cub does look a little bit more cool toned, but overall it's that beautiful pearly soft rose with that red undertone to it, and I just think it's super flattering. I really am a big fan of the formula of lid stars because they're probably the easiest to work with in terms of the formula, because you do have the ability to really shear them out. And the thing about the lid stars is that they don't really ever get to full intensity. So if you are somebody who's kind of a no fuss, no muss type of person and you want a really easy liquid shadow to work with, they've got that formula nailed down. And the Tom Ford one, as I was saying, it does go up to a little bit more full of intensity, but I like this one. And then I also am a really big fan of Herb, which is the green shade, but I would prefer Cub because I use it more often. This is the Natasha Denona Crystal Chroma Eye Top Coat, and I had a really hard time choosing my favorite one out of this line because I genuinely love all the shades that I own, and they're some of the most transformative eyeshadows that I have in my collection. The reason I chose Metal Bronze is because it's the one that I wear the most, and it's the one that can be worn the most different ways. So at full intensity, you get this really beautiful, rich, deep cocoa brown that has a nice golden undertone to it. And the product actually has a slight golden sheen to it. And then once you blend it out, if it's maybe at medium intensity, you start seeing more of those glitter flecks throughout the product itself. And then if you just want to lightly tap it over your eyelids, you'll see that you just get this really pretty, almost like a very, very soft veil of cocoa brown with a really beautiful, intense golden shimmer throughout it. And that's why I like this, because it can be worn 3 different ways. Now, the Crystal Chroma Eye Top Coats do need to be paired with a primer. They will move around if they're not properly anchored to some type of base. So you could either use, you know, like a liquid shadow like this, or if you just wanted to wear it on its own, you can use like a Urban Decay primer potion type of product. But something really important worth noting is that these will shift, they will migrate, they will move, and they will crease if you do not properly prime them. But when they are properly primed, they are absolutely beautiful. So those are all of my top favorite single shadows right now. As I was saying, most of those have been favorites for many, many years. And I personally lean towards a lot of bronze and golden shades for day to day. And I also do think that these types of shadows that are, you know, multi-use tend to be the easiest to work with because, like I said, I like to leave the eye space as uncomplicated as possible. And these are really great shadows to use as a base for your eye routine as well, because you can use them to switch up the looks that you're already doing. And I like that they're available in single shades because oftentimes, you know, with a palette, there's only like 5 shades that I use. Sometimes there's only like 1 or 2. So I think single shadows are a really great way to make sure you're getting the most use out of your eyeshadow products as possible. So if you do have any questions about any of these single shades, you can leave them in the comments down below. I will always do my best to get back to you and help you out as much as I can. Other than that, I'm going to list and link them in the description box down below for you. I'll also have my Instagram, so if you'd come follow me on there, that would be amazing. And if you would subscribe to my channel, I would appreciate that so much. If there are any other top 10, 13, you know, top videos that you want to see about certain product categories, then you can leave them in the comments below as well, and I'll be sure to get around to them. And I'll see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching this one. Bye.